This is Prosper Tome Bound, and this is going to get a little complicated. So, let's talk about Prosper. So, Prosper Tome Bound, well, put this way, he's a bit of a failure. I built a deck around this guy. The important parts of the card. At the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. He came in a pre-constructed deck with a whole bunch of tricks that work with him, which seemed great. Like, hey, this seems like a dumb idea I can have fun with. And I did. Exactly once. And every time since, he has stumbled and failed. Now, this could be, maybe I might have built the wrong deck around him. I don't know. But I tried to find as much stuff that fit with him to make the deck interesting. At the very least, it would be an interesting, dumb deck idea. So, of the ways to play cards from exile in black and red that I have access to, you have cards that exile either the top card of your deck or someone else's, and then let you play it, which is okay, because anytime you can use your opponent's deck as a resource, that's saving you cards. He also came with cards with Rebound, which you cast these guys, they exile themselves, and then next up they cast themselves again. You get a treasure out of it, and you get the same spell twice. Unfortunately, they're all kind of heavy casting costs to make up for the fact that you're getting twice the spell out of it. The next thing they had a little bit of was Cascade. The deck itself didn't come with much Cascade, and that it did, I wasn't really a big fan of. I tried to find a few other cards with Cascade, or in the case of this guy, it makes your Cascade better. So you cast a card with Cascade, and then proceeds to exile cards from the top of your library until it hits one it can with a lower casting cost. And then you cast that spell, and all the rest of these go in the bottom of your library. So this card comes into play from exile, triggering Prosper. Okay, and you're getting 2 spells for 1. From there, I guess they decided to just give up on all the other ways to do things. Most recently, we've had, and I'm just going to go from new mechanics to old here. We have Foretell, where you pay 2, exile this card, and then at a later turn, you can pay it, usually for less than you paid to foretell it. Plus, while these are allowed foretold on the table, they don't count as part of your hand, and they can just sit there and wait until a time when you need them. And you don't have to worry about cards that cause you to discard or mill or whatever. You can blow your whole hand out and still have basically an entire hand of cards sitting on the table. Those work not bad. The problem is that if you hit them with Prosper or any of these other abilities, you're stuck hard casting the spell. And a lot of these, this one destroys a creature, this one gets you a bunch of zombie tokens, this one forks a spell, this one brings a creature back. If you have no use to use them that turn, you either cast them and waste them, or don't cast them and they're gone forever. They're best out in being foretold. The problem is that there's not a lot of foretell in the game, period. And a lot of it seems to be in blue and white. Much more a blue-white mechanic than a black-red one. And you get Adventures, which is still a fun mechanic, right? You would, each of these guys comes with a spell down here in the corner. And you can cast that. The guy goes into exile on an adventure. And then, at any later turn, you can play them back out as the creature. Right? And then even if you hit him with Prosper, this guy comes up, well, I'll cast Haggle, which lets me discard a card, and if I do, draw a card. So I'm casting that from exile, I get a treasure. He sits off there until the day I'm going to need a 2/3 creature. I cast him back from exile, I get a treasure. Works, right? And again, these just sit out there. Everyone knows they're there. But you have resources in waiting. And we have Suspend. The problem with these and Prosper is that if you hit them, you can't put them away for turns with suspend, right? So if I hit Nihilith, which I like the card. It's worth nothing, but I like it anyway. If I hit this guy with Prosper or that, I'm stuck paying 6 mana for a 4/4 Fear. It's a little hefty for what the card is. But if I suspend the guy, normally I'm paying 2 mana and 7 turns, and he'll just sit out there and wait and come back into play. I'll get a treasure. I think, no, it didn't come with Rousing Refrain. Rousing Refrain was a different one. Curse of the Cabal normally costs 10. That's black and 9 mana. And it makes someone sacrifice half their stuff. This is a game-changing spell. You can suspend it for 2 black and 2 counters on it. So it's going to go off in 2 turns unless someone else starts sacking things and putting counters onto it. If you can suspend it, great. If you can't, and you can't pay the 9, these are gone forever. And then some of the better cards with suspend don't have a casting cost. Right? If I hit Profane Tutor, which has no casting cost, can pay 2, suspend it for 2, and in 2 turns I can go for a card. If I hit it with Prosper, it's there, and that's it. It's gone. I can't cast Wheel of Fate. I can't cast these 3 mana rocks from exile because they don't have a casting cost. I like these cards. And the other method, which I cleaned out to try to make the deck work better, is Madness. So you discard a card with Madness, you may discard it into exile and then cast it for the Madness cost. Usually for way less than it's going to cost to play it in the first place. The issue is that Madness is a mechanic that you have to go all in on. You have to have a bunch of cards with Madness and a bunch of ways to discard cards to get the Madness effect. That's a lot of infrastructure for a mechanic, and if you hit them with Prosper, you're stuck casting them for the main casting cost. But I don't want to do that because most of them cost more than they ought to. So what do? The first time I played it, I got to throw a bunch of stuff into exile and a bunch of stuff into On Adventures and Foretell, and then we had a board wipe, and I had to play all the stuff back out again. Because I had so much stuff when no one else had anything. I won. And every other time I didn't. Either because I kept having to exile cards I couldn't cast, or exile cards that cost so much I couldn't cast them. You can throw a whole bunch of mana rocks in here to speed things up, but then the more cards you spend on infrastructure, the less cards you spend on actual cards that win you the game. Right? Like, I've got mana rocks I can throw in here. The problem is, if I hit them with Prosper, they're gone for good. Prosper on his own essentially lets you draw 2 cards a turn, but everyone knows what one of those cards are, and you have a very short window to play it, and if you can't, okay, you don't. Right? Say I exile Urtile, he's got a casting cost of 6 at the end of my turn. Because he's a creature, I can't cast him until my next turn. In that time, if someone blows up one of my mana rocks or kills one of my lands, and I don't have a way to replace that mana, Urtile just wanders away. It's a wasted card. And it's frustrating. Because yes, there are ways to set up what the top card of your deck is going to be. Some of them are stupidly expensive and in desperate need of a reprint. Or they require a little finagling around to like scry rocks or whatever. But then the infrastructure you spent on that, you're not spending on cards that win you the game. And after a few failures, I had to give up with it. Took the deck apart. Prosper. If they make another creature that does something like this, where that cares what cards coming from playing with exile and it's roughly the same colors, he will become part of the 99. On his own, I gave you shot, pal. You dropped the ball. You're going in the box next to Isolde the Blood Witch and Radko's Lord of Riots. Probably where you're going to stay. Sometimes things just don't pan out. Hopefully with all the parts and stuff, I do want to build a Madness deck. As soon as I figure out which colors I want. It's going to be black, red, and something that's not sure what. I'll figure it out. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it will. And if it does, I'll see you in the future.